Get some push rods put in. Put a little lube down on the bottom here. A little bit there on the top. And drop it in. Should be able to see where they're coming in down there in the lifters. Go finish cleaning up the valve train, bring that back over. Let's see. I thought I'd show you. There's a hole there and there, and hole in the head, and that's where oil comes up through to lubricate the rocker arms. So let's see. Probably help if I put it on the right way. There's no gasket between the towers and the head. What insignificant amount of oil might seep through there is just going to end up back down an oil pan, so it's not an issue worth bothering with a gasket over or an O-ring. Get in there. There we go. I'm going to alternate back and forth between towers because some of these valves are going to open as I clamp it down. So that means it's going to have force against it, a twist. So you want to let it come in evenly. Try to keep it from bending anything. In, out. So exhaust for number 2 is down some. Intake for number 3 is down some. It's pretty much on top dead center. It's slightly off from it. Which, when I put the injection pump on, I'll be rolling it around to 20 degrees before top dead center. It's almost there. I'll adjust these valves once I have them on, and probably not until not until I get the injection pump on, because that'll turn things and throw the timing off. Don't need that. They're definitely going to need adjusting, because brand new camshaft, brand new lifters, not to mention all the other stuff. But all right, get these others cleaned up and get them on. Let's see. Yep. This wrench will just get under there, and so I can retorque them bolts without having to pull the rocker assembly up. Won't quite reach down in there, especially with the once the injectors are in, they're going to be up high enough. This tool just won't work on these. It's getting in on that one. But like I say, when the injector's in there, it's just, you need the other one to really do it right. Oh, cool. Set the valve covers on for now, just to keep dusted stuff out. Get more stuff put on. Oh yeah, got just a little bit of this assembly lube left. This red sticky stuff. So I thought I'd put a little tear on the top where the oil squirts out, so it can kind of work its way down in. There. Getting ready to put some more stuff on. Filter base. This hole right here is where the oil comes up from the pump. Comes up through a drilling in the block, comes into the filter base, goes through the filters, then goes to the cooler, and then from the cooler goes across the block to the other side where the pressure regulators are, and then from there it goes to different parts of the engine. There's my gasket. Kind of surprised they don't have an O-ring on these two ports. These can make a fair amount of pressure. They'll get up around 80 psi. I know there's newer stuff that's higher, but for a gasket, that's a fair amount of pressure to hold back. But I guess I don't recall one ever blowing a gasket out there, so it must work. Let's see, filter base. These are just a couple studs that ground the heads off from. Make real nice for lining this stuff up and holding it in place. Holding that gasket in place. But as you can see, the coolant comes from the water pump back to here. Unless it's built into the filters, there is no filter bypass on these. So I flushed everything out real good, but I found no evidence of anything getting past the filters. These bolts go through into the engine compartment. They're not blind, so I got to put something on the threads to seal them up, or it'll wick its way around and get wet. Looks like all of them. Excuse me. Almost over this cold. Yeah, some of those can't reach with a socket. That's bolted on. So as I said, the oil comes in there, goes into the filters, goes down through the center of the filters after it's filtered. This is a drain when you're changing the oil to drain the filters. This is a drain to drain the oil cooler. But from there, it goes in, excuse me, goes up. And the oil cooler ain't all assembled. Oil comes out of this hole, one with the O-ring. Goes into the cooler, comes down, and there is a cooler bypass. That's what this plug here is. If for some reason the cooler gets plugged, the oil will bypass it and still go to the engine. And you got coolant comes in up here. There's a gasket around here. It keeps cooling in and goes through the cooler and then goes into the block right there. Kind of like the design on that the coolant enters the center of the block. Always, when I was younger and learning some of this stuff, I always thought, you know, the coolant entering the front of a block, working its way back, that Number 6 is always going to be hotter because it's just, it's got to get past all these other cylinders and pick up heat before it gets to the back and somehow still work its way to the front where it usually come out through the head. Excuse me. And this one has a water manifold that ain't installed yet, but that brings it up off the head from each cylinder and combines it to go to the radiator, or through the thermostat and out to the radiator. So it seems like this engine should be less prone to hot spots just because of that design. I like it anyways. But I will get this plate on just because once I get the cooler on, these bolts are going to be a little harder to get to. Then I'll finish assembling the cooler, and that's why I didn't assemble it until I got it on here. Just these 3 bolts here are going to be a lot easier to get to, and then putting this cover plate on, a lot easier without that in the way. And then it all just slides on like this, so it'll be easy enough to do. I'm going to put this plate on next. Just wanted to point out there's a hole right here, and that is actually engine oil pressure. I imagine in the military application of this and other things where something required air brakes, that's what this plate here is for. You get lube pressure for your air compressor, and there's a drain down here to let the oil drain back. It would mount on this plate. Don't need air brakes on my tractor. So there's just a plate that goes on there, a gasket covers up that hole and deadheads it. And the air conditioning bracket mounts to a couple of the pump mounts on a couple of those bolts. Yep, my truck is here to load more corn. Just let me finish that up in a little bit. Got my truck loaded. Got some lunch. Now I can get back to this. I guess there's no reason I can't mount that air conditioning bracket. Gotta make sure which holes get the short bolts and which ones get the longer bolts that go through the fuel filter base. So I need one right here. The gasket, O-rings are in place. Put the oil cooler on. That's this baby. This side is the coolant side. Oil goes through that hole and that hole on the inside. All these different layers. They get filled with oil and the coolant's going around them, and so it helps cool the engine oil off. Pretty straightforward. The cover gasket. And in the cover. I think I'll spin the oil filters on there just for the time being to keep any crud from falling down in there. That's the injector for number 2. Didn't do anything other than put it on the tester. Seems to be working great. I tested number 6. I bought a new nozzle for that one, just figuring that something could have hit it, but I thought I'd test it before I went and put the nozzle on, and God, it was working just as good as this one. I did bump it was about 100 pounds low on number 6, but number 2 here seems to be right on the money. So I adjusted 6, but I think 2, put a fresh copper washer on her and put her in. snug them babies up and move on to the next one. Try to tighten them up evenly. All the rubber ring does there, that orange rubber ring, just keep dirt and water and crud out from going down around the injector hole. Keep them from corroding. Never really had problems pulling injectors out of Hercules, but I've had other ones where things get corroded in there and it can be a bear to get the injectors out. Had to turn the pressure up on number 3 here a little bit. It was a little low. Now it's cracking at the 2850 to 20 or 2800 to 2850. Seems to be making a good pattern. Nice atomization. All I had to do is take the cap off and turn the screw in there and until the pressure is where I wanted it. I'll get that one finished up and put in the engine. Here's number 5. Just turned the pressure up on that one. It was about 100 psi low. Nothing drastic, but might as well set them right. I'm ready to put my injection pump back on, but I just making sure the timing mark was lined up in the pump, and I need to get this on the 20-degree mark there. So I was afraid of starting to turn the engine. There. So I got my pointer lined up front. I just need to rotate that until two lines in there line up, and I can tighten her down. Make sure that stayed lined up when that drew up. Still looks good. Pump is installed. Injection pump is installed and all timed. Tightened down. Just need to get that cover on the front there, and now I can rotate it freely to adjust the valves and stuff, and everything will stay in time. Well, I just rotated it with the wrench on the end here, 2 complete revolutions to get it back to TDC. But now that the heads are clamped down and everything, nothing should hit, but it's a lot easier or a lot better to find it now. If somehow or another I messed up or whatever, but no signs of any of that going on. Everything turned over freely. Other than I could feel compression building on a couple of holes. Overall, the valves are tight enough that I doubt they're quite sealing, so didn't expect a lot of compression. But now I can adjust those. But first, get that closed up. Oh, let's see. I know there's only one way this goes. That ain't it. That ain't it. That's it. And then I do believe that is that one. Let's see. No. It's that. Yeah, that lines up. Let's see if I can pry this out just a little bit. There. This bolt here supports the bracket that holds the tachometer reader pickup. We'll tighten her down for now so the gasket seals up. Oh yeah, I was short a lock nut, or lock washer rather. So I better go grab it.